everyone, welcome to On the Other Hand. I'm Ariane Zurcher, and you can see behind me my second vessel that I made, a mixed media vessel with a lot of hand stitching and all kinds of found objects, lots of things. If you haven't followed that, I have a playlist for the mixed media vessel, which is a lot of fun. But this video is actually going to be on a specific stitch, which I realized I've never done a full video for, and that is the Bullion circle. And how do you do a Bullion circle? And I'll show it in a couple different threads and the different ways that you can make them larger and smaller. The Bullion circle, I actually did a cluster of them on this, and I'll show what that looks like as well. Come along with me and let's stitch together. I am using whatever this is. I don't even know. It's a silk thread of some kind, and it looks like it's about a three weight maybe. In any case, the more important, well, the thread is important because it'll make it easier or harder to pull through. But the bigger issue is the needle that you use. Now, there are Bullion needles by Tulip. You can get those. This is a #1 Milner's with a big eye. It's Tulips. I'll put the links in below the video. For the Bullion circle, what you want to do is you come up. And then you want to come very close to where you came up. So do you see how it's only a thread or so away? You're going to pull this, and then you're going to position, and you can use like a little, like a little wool pad to sort of anchor if you want. But you start wrapping. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I usually do somewhere between 20 and, I don't know, depending on how big of a circle you want, 22. I typically don't do much less than that. It depends, though, also on how big your thread is, but this is a 22. What's nice about silk, as well as rayon, is that it does slide through a little bit easier than, say, cotton, like a soft cotton. But soft cotton is really lovely to do these with. Now you're going to go back down very close to where you came out. So this is where your thread originated. This is where you went in, and you're going to go right in between those two somewhere. Doesn't really matter, but very close. You want it to be a full circle. You want it to look like a full circle. Now I just push a little bit with my thumb like that. And now I'm going to tack it down by coming up right at the head or the middle of the circle. And I'm just going to tack it down. And what happens is that it just, if you don't pull too hard, it'll just become part of the wrap. And I like to do clusters of these. I'll try to go a little bit closer. I want to be careful though to not go off frame, because that's really annoying. All right, so I'm going to come back up, right? I'm going to go right about a thread or two away from where I came up. A thread of the fabric, very close. You don't want to come up in the same hole or the whole thing's gonna, could disappear on you. So let's do a little bit bigger. That's 24. That's 30. That's 40. All right. Just remember that the more wraps you do, the harder it can be to pull the needle through. You may have to go a little bit at a time. It's not a problem. And you're going to pull your thread through. When you get it so that it's kind of funky looking, that's okay. Don't worry about it. You can manipulate it. You can always manipulate it. And then you're going to go back down to anchor your thread. And now you're going to tack it down right at the top of that circle. And it'll just become one of the wraps. If it's a variegated thread, you know, suddenly you can get a different color here. Honestly, not a big deal. I've done it in variegated threads and it looks lovely. I don't worry about it. When you have like a whole cluster of them, it's not gonna, nobody's gonna see that and say, oh, you know, oops. Nobody's going to think twice. So you can see this was 40 wraps. This was like 20 something, right? You can vary the size. Okay, that's 30. I like these Lindstrom. I'll put the link down below. These are the 7490 flat nosed. I love these for just this purpose. They're really great. Okay, I'm going to go back down right close to where I came up. I'm going to sort of push that with my thumb a little bit. Come up here. And come back down. Okay, what I like to do is I like to make like a whole mess of them. They're really fun to do, just this big mess of, I think of them as a herd. And then to have a couple strays, you know, a few that sort of lagging. Those were the ones that were looking around, you know, enjoying their surroundings and didn't see that the herd was ahead of them and they were now farther away. So like typically I would do maybe one over here, another over here, another over here kind of thing. After I'd done my massive group. And I'll show some examples of different things that I've done where I've used clusters, big clusters of Bullion circles, but they're really fun. And if you haven't seen my video on how to make a cast-on Bullion circle, I'll put the video of that in the upper right corner here. If it's not there, if you can't easily find it there, you can always look below, but it should be there. If you click on the little circle, it says like an eye, like for information, it should have it. Okay, so there's 4. I'm going to do one more over here. This one is just going to be determined how big it is by how much thread I've got left on the needle. I'm trying to get 2 threads. Sometimes if your fabric is fine, this is a linen, but if you have a very fine fabric that you're working on, if you just do 1 thread, it can rip right through. So sometimes it's better to take a couple threads. Also depends on how thick. Obviously if you're doing burlap, 1 thread will be fine. This is also a fun way to position other things. So if you're doing a lot of layering, if you're doing a lot of layering, cheesecloth, and you've got, I don't know, other stuff that you're sort of doing like a collage kind of mixed media thing. This is a fun way to sort of adhere stuff. So again, I'm just going to kind of push it with my thumb to position it. Okay, so there it is. Okay, I wanted to show you something a little different. So if you, let's say I put in some cheesecloth and I've got some silk throster this is from Steph Francis. I love this stuff. And you just needle punch it in. And so now you want to do like a little cluster, right? This is knitting yarn that I got in Bergen, Norway. And it's a variegated, and it's just beautiful. And you can see it goes from blues to pinks to back to these kinds of greens, and it can get quite vibrant, the green. In any case, this is where that's sort of a mustard color, and that's fine. So now I'm going to, and it's also a more challenging thread because it's got slub to it, it's thick, it's thin. This is a very, very challenging thread. I do not recommend that you start practice with a silk or a rayon or something that's going to be really easy to slip through. Do not start with something like this. The key is to go pretty loose with your wraps. Do not try to make them tight, because the tighter they are, the harder it's going to be to get through this sort of the thick and the thin and the slubby. I'm not counting. It doesn't really matter. Whatever it's going to be. I can usually eyeball it. As long as it's about like that, it's going to be fine. And I'm going to pull this through. And as you can see, so there's all kinds of things that are happening. I've got a slub. I've got throster that's getting pulled in as well. But it's possible. It's just trickier. And there's my little bullion circle, right? And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of squish it down. I'm going to go back down very close to where I came. I definitely need my pliers for something like this. As I said, this is like your advanced bullion circle. Do not try this on the first go. Make your life easy and practice. I've done thousands of these, so I definitely have gotten to a point where I sort of know the little tricks of how to make this work. But this is certainly a more challenging thread, a more challenging kind of thing because of the throster getting, and also just even the cheesecloth. All right, so I'm going to come up here, right? And again, I'm going to do my pull, my threads. It helps to have like a little pad. I've got this little wool pad. I've also got this little guy, which I love, a little wool buddy. You can just sort of anchor your needle on it as well. Okay. This through. I'm going to push with my thumb, go right into the center so that it's pulls it together. Squish that little guy down so I'm getting a full circle, and tack the top down. Okay, I'll do another one right here. Come back up. Sometimes you have to pull a little bit at a time, especially when you have a challenging thread. A slub thread is definitely going to be the most challenging, for obvious reasons, right? Now, another thing that people often ask me is, why don't you use a hoop? This is the one time when I would use a hoop. Although I've certainly done these more often without. But if I had a big piece and I was doing a lot of these, a hoop would definitely help, just sort of, you know. The other time that I like to use a hoop is if I'm doing a bullion tendril, which is something that I sort of came up with, a variation on a bullion knot. And there's a video. I'll put that also in the upper right corner of this video. But there you go, so, right? So, and now I'll just show you some still shots of different projects where I've used clusters of these bullion circles, but they're really fun. I encourage you to play with different thread types. Start with a rayon or a silky, where it's a silk, where it'll slip through much more easily. And then once you've done about 1,000, I'm not kidding, then you could try doing a slub and see how it works. Don't forget to hit the like button, and if you enjoy this and want to see more, I'm doing a lot of mixed media stuff and got pretty much every stitch known demonstrated on my channel. Thanks so much for watching.